Hi everyone. So I just finished reading this, the whole thing, including the letter column, and I gotta be honest, my adrenaline is pumping. I'm actually angry. Uh, there's something in here. So the comic is bad in many ways, but something happened in the letter column that's one of the most arrogant, dismissive, condescending things, and especially coming from an editor to a long-term fan. I'm hot. So I do this thing, a lot of my videos are roasting things, and to me, roasting, especially done in good fun, is a very healthy thing, and it's very convivial. It brings people together. Go ahead and roast me whenever you want to. There's a lot of stuff to roast. But I do this thing before I go into anything, especially if I've got some preconceptions, and I tell myself, I don't lose anything by liking this. My favorite movie is Man from U.N.C.L.E., and I went into that to roast it because it was doing so bad. It was flopping. I love that movie. I own it. I talk it up to everyone, and I've created, several fans by recommending it. So I went into this, and I was actually excited because it's a good marriage of good art that's not overdone. I'm a big fan of Stefano Caselli. He was on G.I. Joe about like a decade ago. I thought he was going to be the next big thing. He didn't turn into that, but I flipped through it. The art was good, so I was really excited about it. So I get in, and the funny thing is I could actually probably do 3 videos about this comic because there's just 3 things that are just horrible. Number one is this really convinces me that RiRi Williams is the worst SJW character ever created. She is completely insufferable and obnoxious. She's a weak, paper-thin character, and she's just a joke. So this is going to be my longest video. I can already tell. I'm going to try to talk fast so it doesn't drone on forever. But okay, let's see. Number one, her name is RiRi Williams. First of all, that doesn't really match the typical thing for Marvel heroes. Kamala Khan matched it. Miles Morales matched it. RiRi Williams sounds like a middle-aged white guy who is trying to sound woke, tried to think of a black name. Okay, first of all, I would swear 50% of the black women I've met in my life have been named Denise. It seems to be a very popular black girl, woman name. Name her Denise Devereaux. Name her Denise D. It doesn't have to be RiRi Williams to show you, okay, cool. Now, getting into this, first of all, she talks like the most cliche millennial you've ever seen. This is where it gets obnoxious. She's talking, and she does cliche millennial speak that, again, is like weirdly inaccurate. It's like the most extreme inaccurate version of a millennial done by a middle-aged, like, rich white guy. So she does that thing where she's like, it would take me it's Bendis dialogue. It would take me a whole video to go through it. But basically, it's it's that Bendis Whedon speak, which is a 50-year-old guy's idea of what cool teenagers talk like. They actually, my son's a teen, they actually talk pretty straightforward. They're kind of, I call them post-teenagers. Like, so many adults act like kids these days that I've actually found that teenagers tend to act more mature than adults. And they don't try to talk like teens, they try to talk to it like adults. Or actually like adults used to talk. So it's basically, she's like, it basically translates to this, like, OMG, I'm like a superhero or whatever. And then she basically talks about how everyone loves her. So everyone wants things from her and is offering her things. MIT wants her. By the way, she robbed MIT. That's her origin. So a woke liberal white guy decided the best origin for a black superhero was her stealing things. Even though she's a super genius. Okay, so MIT wants her. The Champions want her. Spider-Man thinks she's cool. Tony Stark offered her her own lab. And then everyone's cool to her. Everyone's cool, but it's like, so yeah, I have choices to make. Ugh. Just right off the bat. So then you get like, and again, it's really good art. It's kind of boring stuff, but it's very well drawn. So you get an overlay. Apparently there's a S.H.I.E.L.D. meeting just about RiRi and how amazing she is and how much they want her. Then like her life story is ridiculously cartoonish. Her mom is a double widow whose last husband died right in front of RiRi. They also mentioned later on that she's got a best friend who was also recently killed right in front of her. And so this basically, they just talk about, like, wow, she's just a genius. So here's the deal. They do this weird thing where they introduce something that's actually interesting. So Tony has an AI that basically sounds exactly like him. And they basically say an AI without a human body to worry about its frailties could become like a Ultron. I was like, oh, that's actually a pretty cool concept. So then we get in here and they just talk about like how great she is. Oh, you know, the champions want her. Her best friend was murdered in front of her at a church picnic. This is cartoonish. This is over, like, geez. I guess this is her best friend. So not only was her dad, because I guess black people only live in super violent ghettos and their names are RiRi or Shaniqua, according to middle-aged woke white guys who write her. And then it's like they're just saying like, and she's getting a free. Stark is paying for her to go to MIT. By the way, she's supposed to be smarter than Stark. Why is she even going to MIT? You know, most of the tech guys are known for dropping out. Bill Gates and Zuckerberg and all those guys, they all drop out because they don't need it. So then we get this, and of course, just Tony is literally always telling her the great. Tony, the most sarcastic guy ever, is just always telling her that she's great. Then she goes up against like the most Z-grade villain, Will of the Wisp, and this is her genius plan. She's gonna put all of her power to her shields, and then just rush at him. She gets knocked out, but when she doesn't have any kind of like a normal human reaction, like thank God I'm alive or is everyone okay, her reaction is completely obnoxious. Her reaction is she can't believe she lost, because all people ever do is compliment her, and that's never presented as a bad thing. Because the deal is, because she's a black girl, the very, very nervous and probably secretly racist writers and editors, they're terrified of black people and black characters. So when they create a black character, they're like, any faults she has are spread to all black people. So let's just make her perfect. Also, everyone will love her. So basically, she fought this guy like a total idiot. And then everyone's just congratulating her. They're like, you know what? The point is you tried. You're going to learn from this. And then basically Tony's like, you're awesome. You could have gotten a lot of people killed. Literally just irresponsibly flying that suit could take down a whole skyscraper. And she just fought him like an idiot. And then after she failed, after everyone complimenting her and her learning nothing, by the way, she always has this like weird, like, oh my God, like stupid expression. Then the Tony AI basically just compliments her some more. He's like, Tony saw you as a kindred spirit. By the way, actually my time's going pretty good on it. Little background on RiRi Williams. RiRi Williams' main claim to fame is that she invented a very janky prototype Iron Man-ish armor like 10 years after Tony built the same thing in a cave in Afghanistan. And she built it with the materials from a MIT lab. So she's basically Marvel's version of the Clock Kid. If you remember that 2 years ago, a kid got arrested for having what people thought was a bomb. Basically, he took like an $8 alarm clock. He unscrewed the housing, and then he just put like the exposed guts out like in a little box, and he's like, hey, I invented a clock. That's literally exactly what RiRi Williams did. She invented something already invented that wasn't as good, with every advantage of an MIT lab. So then basically, so then she's like kind of shocked. She goes, I have to start training like an astronaut, like astronauts do. I mean, that is what I do. This is supposed to be a super genius, smarter than Tony Stark. And she's like shocked that she has to learn. She's like, oh, I have to train. This is like, I don't know, a couple issues. This is issue 7 into her run. After like blithely just doing good at everything and constantly being complimented. And of course it was her idea that she has to be trained. So then we get Sharon Carter, who she's aged now, and she's at like an event that has such poor security that a international arms dealer, who is obviously dying of a virus, and who then, spoiler, explodes, gets to get within feet. Well, at least this waiter's giving him a snooty attitude, so there's not no security. He gets to go up to the head of the shield, and they actually mentioned that there was tons of dignitaries there. So apparently there's no security. So then basically RiRi has the same blank expression she has to everything. So okay, so there's lots of SJW characters, and I'm actually going to do a video probably later this week explaining what makes an SJW character besides someone like, why is RiRi Williams an SJW character? The old Sam Wilson wasn't, but the current Sam Wilson is. And there's some real obvious telltale signs. But I would just say there's different levels of SJW heroes. Like Squirrel Girl, that's just supposed to be a goof. It's like pseudo Archie. Even though she's firmly in the continuity, she's not supposed to be an A-lister. Even things like Hellcat, Mockingbird, those were just like sides. But RiRi is supposed to be an A-lister. She's supposed to be a possible flagship character. I do not think they have any plans of her being like one storyline and going away. She's the next big thing, and she is completely obnoxious, silly, shallow, no promise. She basically skipped to the head of the line. They didn't really develop her. She was developed to replace Tony. A proper way would do that would be to have her a character for years, get people like her, and anytime you don't like her, it's because you're racist or sexist. It's not because you spent $4.90 or $3.99 on a book that basically is just compliments a really shallow character. Okay, so I was ready to roast it pretty much good-naturedly, pretty much how I'd done. It hasn't been really that mean. Then I read the letters page, and we get they do this kind of weird thing where they're really going for the young crowd, and it's really cringy because actually this is written by the assistant, and I'm going to roast her, and it's going to get a lot worse. Alana Smith, is that they're like, oh hey, answering some questions about the character. Then this is bad. So as a side issue, last fall there was a what do you call it? Optional. You know when they have extra covers. I'm blanking on the term for an optional cover. And it was a J. Scott Campbell piece, and it was obviously done very quickly. It literally looked like he spent like an hour and a half on it. It was not very well drawn. In it, he did what most comic artists have done throughout history, is that most comic artists, they are not really good at actually like drawing different people. So you'll notice like a 25-year-old and a 65-year-old will almost look exactly the same except for hair color. So like teenagers and women basically have the same body. And he did that. He drew a girl who was like a woman's body but a skinnier version. She had like on one of those little belly shirts. And then it became like this fake controversy about sexualizing a teen, and it got really cringy and creepy. So, so basically, J. Scott Campbell at first kind of did a clapback, and then they kind of got like enough of a perfect storm of people, and so he basically retracted his clapback, and then he spent, it looks like about 2 days doing a follow-up piece. that was very well drawn, but it was very non-dynamic. It was just a girl sitting, staring right at the reader, and she basically had to cover her body. It's like what I've talked about, this like weird neo-Talibanism. I showed it. RiRi's the same age as my son. I showed a picture of the controversial cover to him, and he said, "This looks like half the girls at my school." But anyway, so a guy writes, and I hope that it doesn't look like this is getting perfectly in focus because of the shininess in the letters. But the guy says, I wanted to love this book. He's talking about the J. Scott Campbell variant cover. And then he goes, "Can someone explain to me why I'm a complete idiot how this cover was inappropriate? I have a 12-year-old daughter, so I'm aware of objectivity. My daddy radar is always on. But please enlighten me so I can get past it, so that this 46-year-old man can open a comic book by one of his favorite writers and get lost in 22 pages of fiction, not have it tarnished by now having to read between the lines to see if there's anything else that other people will find offensive." That's very well put, and it's very sincere. It's very much of an open-minded guy. And let's be perfectly honest. This 46-year-old guy, he's the guy. He is the reader. He's the guy going into the comic book shop. Those are who I see, guys like this. I do not see RiRi Williams. I do not see young people. And, you know, my son, he'll read a comic, but he doesn't really care about the medium. To him, it's just a delivery vehicle. If the story is good, he's just glad he read a good story, and then he's on to the next movie or video game, which I think is fairly typical. So then, and I actually went to the point of looking up this girl. The funny thing is, I imagined what she looked like, and I was 100% spot on. And I roasted her on Twitter. I said, "Your answer is one of the most obnoxious, condescending. I can't believe it." So you saw this guy, Bill Mora, 46-year-old father of a 12-year-old daughter, and he writes very sincerely, and he signs it, "Making my Marvel since 1977. So then, Alana Smith, the assistant editor, says, "Hey Bill, I think the best thing you can do here is listen to the people who are angered by the cover. Don't argue with them or demand they explain. People don't even have to explain, and you can't debate it. Just listen. If you find that it's mostly women, and specifically women of color, who are bothered by it, it's worth considering that you're confused." The arrogance about this is shocking. I looked this girl up. She looks like she's about 23. She's talking to a guy twice her age like he's a child. "You're confused simply because this issue isn't one that directly affects you." He just said he has a 12-year-old daughter, and he's very cognizant about issues like this. "And the best thing you can do in that situation is trust that the person who's upset has good reason to be, and hear them out, even if you can't quite wrap your head around it. Hope that helps." This literally, okay, I'm not going to misuse the word literally. It figuratively got my blood boiling, and it literally raised my heart rate, and I had an adrenaline release, because one of the things I don't like is condescension. This little 23-year-old assistant editor, who, I'm just going to say it, was probably hired to get more women on the team. She doesn't have any ability to talk to people. And Marvel is kind of famous like this. The editors tend to be men. The assistant editors tend to be a rotating series of 23-year-old cute girls with dyed blue hair. And I'm sure there's a whole other story behind that. But sorry, the meanness of her is making me mean. I try not to be. There's multiple things that are just obnoxious. Number one, you're talking to a customer who paid for your book and has paid for your book since probably about 16 years before you were born. So have some common respect. Second of all, you've barely experienced life. This guy's 46 and he has a kid. Why are you talking to him like he's your kid? I'm just going to go out and guess that she's not even interested in ever having kids. The idea to say you cannot debate someone or have them explain because you're not the same skin color or gender, that is racist and sexist. This is where I'm talking about, where it's like neo-segregation. So apparently this guy can pay for comics, but he's not allowed to discuss them. First of all, there was nothing of a black issue with RiRi Williams in that, besides her being black. And if that's the atmosphere you're going to create, that I have to like everything and anything bad happens to her is because you're black, that's a reason to just hit a button and just get out of there right now. And I'm going to say this Alana Smith, she should be fired immediately. Like, if I worked at a McDonald's and I talked to a customer like this, I would get fired on the spot. This is so obnoxious, and I don't even think I think she thinks she's woke and she's trying to wake him up. He has a 12-year-old daughter. He's in the trenches every day knowing about how these issues. I almost said I can't even. I can always, I had a little, I just stopped for a second. So, it looks like this was my longest video. Tell me what you think about these longer videos. Tell me what you think about these angrier videos. I'm trying to have a light, fun channel, but I don't like people being condescended to. This boils my blood. It's really obnoxious, especially since, I always bring it up. These people are hijacking things that they didn't create to put their politics forward. And they're destroying Marvel, which everybody in the country knows about Iron Man. He should be selling hundreds of thousands of copies. He's selling, first of all, it's not even him. He's just a hologram in his own book. Iron Man should be selling minimum 100,000. He is the most popular person in pop culture right now. Everyone loves Robert Downey Jr. in this role. Everyone loves Iron Man. It's a book with a bunch of talking, complimenting a terrible character who then gets in the most incompetent fight. And then in issue 7, she realizes she needs training. And then we get this, I'm just going to be rude, this little chippy insulting a 46-year-old man who's been buying Marvel comics since, maybe 18 years before she was born, has a daughter, and she's going to splain to him. So tell me what you think about this comic. Tell me what you think about RiRi Williams, everything about her. Tell me what you think about her name. Tell me what you think about me getting a little bit mean in this and getting kind of heated. Tell me what you think about the assistant editor's reaction. And I'm going to go chill out. I've actually got, I'll probably do another video up later today. And thanks for watching. Subscribe, like, that type of stuff helps grow the channel. And see you next time.